Welcome to another Moto Stories with Unkie Phil, and today we've got guests from afar, or maybe from a near, Chicago. That's where these guys are from. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Brian.
I'm Darren.
Yeah, and so these are scooter people from Chicago. And I've known Brian for about 130 years, or what it feels like 130 years, and I've known you for about 125.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that.
In scooter years.
In scooter years, exactly. Where we do arrive at everything a bit late. Yes.
Phil and I were born almost at the same time.
It was frightening how close our birthdays are. And the same year, same everything. So this is what 52 years looks like. You know, pretty good.
I wasn't going to say the year, but okay.
Yeah, okay. That's pretty fair. And what we wanted to bring to this is, you know, we talk a lot about the motorcycle adventures we have. We talk a lot about our friends and everything else. Yeah, I know, motorcycles. But the scooter culture is really where we kind of found each other and exploded and realized there were like-minded individuals.
Scooter people are the best people.
It's the weirdest thing.
I have friends around the country and on other continents because of scooter.
I have scooter friends.
And I own a motorcycle.
Exactly. I have scooter friends who are also motorcycle friends. And that's bizarre because you're like, oh, well, we're motorcycle friends, but we met through scootering, that kind of thing. And that's when you realize all these cool scooter people also have motorcycles.
I can go to any city in America and have a place to stay and ruin someone's week.
Oh, yeah.
And probably a bike to borrow, too, which is saying a lot.
It is saying a lot. And it also funny, too, because you guys got the CV350F how long ago?
Yeah.
What, don't tell your wife that it's running or what?
Yeah, she knows. Just don't tell people I got a motorcycle. It's Tracy's.
We don't want to out you.
It's your wife's.
I don't know, like in the late 90s, I guess.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is this funny thing where it's like, there are scooter people that have an actual motorcycle problem. And people don't realize that. They think that if you just have a scooter, you're just a scooter person for the rest of your life and you're never gonna, wander out into any other scene.
I don't know why you gotta justify our motorcycle.
I know, that's right. Well, I do. Sometimes I feel like I have to justify a motorcycle.
They're not quite as cool.
They're not even close. I rode here today on a Vespa, and at no point had I been riding any of my motorcycles when people have stopped and said, cool bike, thumbs up, etc.
I get that on my Moto too.
Yeah, Gucci's have that. Gucci's are almost Vespas. They really are. They're almost
Italian.
Vespas.
They're made by Piaggio. They're owned by Piaggio.
Yeah, and they're made by people who drink too much wine.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're engineered by people who drink too much wine. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and they're good for those of us who like pasta and stuff. You know, they're good for full-size adults.
And they take a little running in before they run just right.
Oh yeah, about 40,000 miles. Yeah, Gucci's getting its stride at about 40,000 miles. Brian, we were talking earlier. I think the first rally you and I went to together was what I like to call a National Guard resources test. I mean, okay, we figured out it might have been Slaughterhouse 2, right? Was that the idea?
Well, no, I think we met at Niagara before.
We did meet at Niagara, right. That was the first one that we both attended mutually.
Right. But then you came out, for Slaughterhouse 2, which was sort of like, there wasn't FEMA then, but there should have been.
There should have been FEMA. To give the breakdown, we started in downtown Chicago because at the time you were living kind of right downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so because everybody was a certain age and they didn't have houses in the suburbs yet, the ride started from...
I don't live in the suburbs.
You live suburb
150
adjacent.
feet from the suburbs, but I do not.
You live suburb adjacent.
Don't even fucking throw that.
Now, first of all,
you live in the suburbs.
I do live in the suburbs, the way out hinterland, which is still closer to the city center than where he lives versus Chicago. So it takes me a half an hour to get to my house.
But you have to deal with the corrupt city government,
That's right.
just like I do.
Yes, exactly. And nobody's trying to put chairs in front of my house to claim parking spaces. But I can guarantee that still happens where he lives.
Yeah.
So the funny thing was, we started in all these various different kind of neighborhoods, and we just rode around it. Like started with 2 bikes, and then it turned into more and more and more. And this was my first time ever experiencing a city rally, but then a Chicago city rally. And I was driving a friend's truck, and so we'd kind of come out to this rally together with a Ford Ranger pickup truck and a couple of bikes in the back. And we were like, okay, well, one of us is gonna ride, the other one of us is gonna drive the truck. And this ride never fucking got, we're joking, it never ended. It never got started.
Yeah, right. Well, it's North Avenue is like, we took North Avenue all the way out there, and that's like, if you have a street in your town, I'm sure, that's like a Home Depot, and then a Best Buy, and then another Home Depot, and then another Best Buy, and then another Home Depot, and that's North Avenue for like about 150 miles out of Chicago. Right.
It is. Yep. I can only imagine Lewis and Clark going out and going, and there'll be a Home Depot there, and there'll be a Best Buy there, and there'll be a Home Depot there. all the way to Wyoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
There were a couple cornfields in between.
We never-
Back then, maybe.
yeah, we never got out of third gear for the entire ride out. And then when we finally, I kept waiting for us to arrive at the location, but then every about 1 hour or 200 meters, whatever it was, somebody else's bike would break down.
Well, this was early on, yeah.
Yes.
Before we learned what we were doing.
And at some point, we got all the bikes running at the same time.
Or learned to bring cables with us
Or tools.
Yeah, or tools.
Yeah.
Right,
And at some point, the whole ride finally got moving at the same time. Everybody was happily moving forward. And our friend Alfredo stopped. He ground to a halt instantly, and we were nearly killed 3 people, because when he stopped, 6 or 7 people jammed lock brakes behind him. And we're like, oh my God, are you okay?
Right, so that was good.
He was stopping to adjust a mirror. He had a mod bike, so he had all these mirrors
A
all
lot of
over.
mirrors,
Yeah, he had a lot of mirrors, and he had literally stopped in traffic to adjust one of his 6 or 8
couldn't see,
mirrors.
right here.
Yeah, he couldn't see his left armpit. And I was like, we're gonna die. This is not an organized ride. These people are gonna kill me. We're gonna have a bad time.
Well, you didn't even get to the weather yet.
Well, we picked up a friend's scooter who had literally had the bike painted that day, I think.
No, that was the whole Niagara thing.
That was the whole Niagara,
We'll
yeah.
get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But we got to this campsite, and the people that ran the thing were like, oh, you're here. Well, you actually showed up. And our campsite was on the other side of this, probably in a little creek with a little road going over it, maybe a little bridge.
Yeah, it looked like your typical nice small group, state park campsite.
Yeah, like a good Sam place where you might pop up your little trailer camper.
Raccoons and trees.
Oh, it was
around
beautiful.
and
It was great.
But it was underwater.
It was underwater,
Yeah.
and we couldn't get to our campsite because our campsite, the little creek, had turned into a raging torrent. And they were like, you're not camping back there. And the negotiation was something like, we'll put you on this hilltop, this grassy knoll. And then there was a circus tent.
Yeah.
There was a really large tent, and I believe, now did we rent that tent?
I imagine Mo and Kristen did. Yeah.
I think what happened was the situation was so dire that we were like, we can't all just live in our tents for the next 3 days. So we went to a rental place and got a generator and a tent.
Well, no, because there were bands lined up. and
Yes,
stuff.
exactly.
This was the second slaughterhouse, and the first one was in Tinley Park, and 150 people showed up, and it was actually a pretty big, solid event, and everyone was surprised it actually went so well. So for the second one, they broke everything out.
Yeah.
They rented the tent. They got bands lined up.
Made a big
Everything
deal of it.
And then about 9 or 10 people showed up.
And
Because the weather was
the
terrible.
bands were high-powered bands. So do you remember the band lineup?
I think it was Deals Gone Bad.
Deals Gone
which I
Bad.
realized. And then possibly Highball Holiday.
I think it was Highball Holiday.
from Milwaukee.
Yeah, and it was an amazing venue.
Playing, there was as many of them as there were.
We outnumbered, the
they were
band
ska
outnumbered
bands,
us.
so
Yeah,
they
ska
showed up
bands,
with
so-
8
right.
people. You need
So that was
to-
good. Yeah, that tripled the population of the campsite.
But many things were discovered. The first thing was the value of a kiddie pool. Because a kiddie pool behind a scooter on the world's wettest grass is just it has no drag coefficient whatsoever. It goes as fast or faster than the bike can go, with a person in it. And the number of people that suffered tailbone injuries, every time you turn around, somebody'd be like coccyx, It was,
Alfredo's
Also,
aforementioned.
coccyx is a funny word.
Coccyx is a funny word. We could just talk about cockeye all night.
well, what about cloacas?
That's good.
That's a good one too.
But as Alfredo's aforementioned brakes that would stop him in the wet grass, but it would not stop the. It would
The
not
kiddie
stop
pool
the
had no
kiddie
brakes on it.
pool. So that would just ram into the back of the scooter.
Well, and
Or swing out around
I was
and ram
gonna
into
say,
the front of the scooter.
the kiddie pool one time went past Alfredo and dragged Alfredo's bike down with it. And I was like, that's bad thinking.
Yeah.
Stop on a dime, but the kiddie pool doesn't.
We got our money's worth.
We
That's
did.
pretty cool.
And there was a lumber yard adjacent to our campsite that we could see on the way in and out. And 2x4s and large boards were floating above the height of the Kenworth trucks that were hauling them. That's how much water there was. It was quite a thing. And, 3 days of that, we got to know each other pretty well.
Yep, I still talk to just about everyone that
I
was
know,
there.
all 9 of us.
And that
yeah.
was 26, 28 years ago.
Yeah, and it is a crazy thing about the bonds that you build when you go through adversities at scooter rallies. And that's the thing that we will tell you is that there's been much adversity. We've been kicked out of perfectly good campsites. We've had the law called on us. We've then gone out on naked rides that lasted for hours trying to interact with the local color.
Going on naked rides and getting lost.
Got lost on naked rides, absolutely. That's when you have to stop and ask for directions with no clothes on. That's a humbling experience.
What was I was saying? The Rob Hodge Road naked around an entire lake.
Yep.
And got within sight of the campsite and then saw a police car and turned around and went all the
entire way back. The entire lake.
Yes.
And I don't know why the Midwest is so strong with the scooter religion. I've traveled all over, but the Midwestern people embrace it. You go in their house and it's like, you go to California, you see a guy with a bunch of Vespa stuff or Lambretta stuff in his house and you're like, yeah, he's like one of the purists. But every person I've ever known in our community, that's their decoration, is like their whole idea, their whole theme of their house is.
It makes less sense because the weather sucks.
That's what I was gonna say.
Right. And like Minneapolis is maybe the best scooter town,
yes.
and they have
their
3 or 4 weeks of riding.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe it's the idea of celebrating that, getting the hell out of it and doing it hard and fast.
Or we just have time to get our bikes running.
Well, that first big group ride of every season is great. Even though we hang out with these people all winter.
Yeah. But it makes
the first time you all get out,
blow the dust off.
Yeah.
I wanted to tell the folks about EJ Cars. So in our community, see that smile? In our community,
bashful smile.
There are certain things you can say, like the word band camp, and people just smile, right? And EJ Cars is one of those ones that if you were there, it's a biker's campground. I mean, that's fair.
It's kind of like the Sex Pistols at Manchester Lesser Free Hall. Like there were about 100 people there.
But if you ask, everyone says they were there. And so EJ Cars is basically, it's a bar that happens to have a few acres attached to it. Right. And we showed up. You guys had organized that.
Yeah, this was I think it's still there. It's
not still there.
Morris, Illinois. There,
really?
Down past.
I tried to schedule another event there.
Oh, you did?
And it didn't exist anymore.
So that's another one where it was a tragically long distance from the city of Chicago to get to this rally.
And it was televised on Wild Chicago,
it was.
which you can find on this very
that exists.
On the same basic cable channel you're watching right now. But and then like Matt crashed that brand new Doc Martin small frame right in front of Joliet Prison, which is where the Blues. But we were like, hey, that's where the Blues Brothers got out.
Important thing on the right, and now watch Matt just crash. And now to call it, just to say, not to brush over it, but Doc Martin's the company that makes the boots. They had done an advertising marketing program where they had taken several Vespa scooters, painted them custom with Doc Martin themes, and put them in the Doc Martin stores across America. And then after that, they sold them out. And our friend Matt was lucky enough to get one.
Actually, I think his wife was
lucky enough to get one.
And then Matt was lucky enough to crash it like 3 days after.
and that was one of those things where they were still kind of fresh together.
Yep.
So him crashing her bike was very risky behavior.
In that video you referenced.
He looks very nervous.
No, he says, my wife is going to kill me. That's what he says in the video.
And that was absolutely true. We got to this damn campsite.
She might have killed him. He might be dead.
That was 20-something.
Yeah, it was. And now they've got children. Yep. So we got to this campsite, laid everything out. It was a lot of fun. But the bar was only set up to handle like probably 600 or 700 bikers. I mean,
they weren't ready for 80 scooterists.
No, they were not ready for 85 of my friends to show up at the same time. And they were fully stocked for Labor Day weekend when we got there. And they had a motorcycle rally scheduled for Labor Day. So the Labor Day event Monday.
It was actually on Sunday. They had a poker run Sunday morning.
They had a poker run on Sunday morning. So they were fully stocked.
Which is important to another story.
Yes. And we got in there and we just had a great time and enjoyed ourselves. But the math is important. If you like to drink and go out and do things, math can be your friend. So if you drank an old style in the bar, I believe it was $4. But if you got an old style to go in a paper bag, like a 6-pack was like $10. And the math kicked in real fast for all of our friends who are usually overeducated. Scooter people are mostly smart. Not me, most of these guys are though. And so we discovered, like, why would we stand in that building and drink it when we can stand on the patio and drink it twice as fast? Twice as cheap. And we were all carrying out, and then they figured that out and they told us we weren't allowed to do that anymore. And they did tell us that we weren't allowed to bring in any of our own beverages to this particular event, right? That was one of the rules.
Luckily we did.
And luckily we broke that rule because otherwise we'd have gone thirsty. That was an evening of much, much debauchery. We were drag racing in a field that might have been 75 to 80 meters long on bikes that could go very quick from 0 to 60. And our friend Gobshite Tom had this chopper that was about 11 feet long. And choppers don't do great on wet grass anyway. Then drunken pilot, no rundown area. And we watched him completely lose the race. But then more importantly, he lost the rundown, because he ran down all the way into the culvert next to the road. and just ate shit hard. And pieces of the chopper just fell off. It was great. What other highlights
Well,
were
back to the alcohol, though.
okay. Back to the alcohol.
Those are the best part of the story.
All right, we went. Yeah, we got there. I had eaten at a fast casual New England chicken chain earlier that day, and was vomiting instantly by the time we got to the campsite. So I didn't drink all night, so I got to watch all this sober, which was fun.
Oh my God.
Our friend Mo and probably like Andy and a couple other people decided at the bar to invent a game called You Buy, I Drink, which involved.
I thought it was I Buy, You Drink.
Yes. I buy, you drink. So anyone.
But the rules are the same.
The rules are the same.
It works out the same way. But that's where I say, like, give me a shot of that for that person, and they have to drink it. And pretty much everyone at the rally was doing that.
But that game came up because they ran out of things
and,
that
they
people
almost
would
instantly
want
ran
to
out
drink
of
order for themselves.
Ran out of like liquors like bourbon or rum or scotch, and they were pretty much left with like
I'm gonna
raspberry.
I need to order something, but I don't want to drink.
Raspberry schnapps or like Pernod or whatever.
I never drank so much Campari and so much peach schnapps in my life. It was a mess.
So that added to the fun. That everyone was just wasted, and then even that we drank out pretty much all the liquor they had, and definitely all the beer they had. Yeah. There was no beer left at the bar, so luckily I think Detroit had smuggled in a keg, and we emptied that pretty fast too.
They did, and management had some kind words for us.
Yeah.
The woman who runs the place, she came out and she gave us our goodnight kiss, so to speak. She said, "I hope you all puke in your tents. You drank everything." And I was like,
This is Friday night.
That should be on our tombstone.
This is Friday night, and they had no alcohol left, and we were just
Labor Day
started.
weekend.
So they went out the next day and like just stocked up, just bought like cases and cases and cases of beer, and then that was all gone by Saturday afternoon.
Oh yeah. It didn't work well for them. It was a pretty rough weekend for the whole lot of us. But many things. So because it was a biker campsite, as it was, there were a couple of them hanging around. And the name of the club struck us funny because, again,
their back patches.
Their back patches struck us funny. And I wasn't really certain I knew how to spell disciples, but I knew that wasn't it. And I just remember there was probably an S in there somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I asked some of my friends who are smarter than I am, which is most of them, I said, "See all these guys walking around looking like they're extras in some movie? Is that supposed to say Dickiples?"
Yep, Devil's Dickiples.
And now, how are we not supposed to get our asses kicked at that point?
Well, there were 85 of us.
That's
and
true.
2 or 3 of them. So that helped.
And they showed up.
And then they kind of had the whole, well, you guys just wait till Sunday thing going on.
Yeah, they did. They had that vibe was just waiting till Sunday.
I think like even Grace, like people were just actively hassling them to their face.
Well, I believe
Dickiples.
Tracy and Grace had said they were going to start their own club called
Black Windows.
The Black Windows. So I thought that was a really good idea. I thought that should have been formed there.
I think the Black Windows were hassling the Devil's Dickiples right to their faces.
I think there's going to be a major gang war.
Yeah, well, those guys, and then they turned out they were sitting by the fire and drinking with us, and then one of them produced.
Where did the pornography come from?
Well, okay, our friend Andy.
Because who just carries pornography?
Our friend Andy, right. Who brings a sledgehammer and pies to a party? Right. Our friend Andy, who won't use his last name.
No, we can't.
He had aspirations of public office at one point.
Yes, exactly.
Andy was notoriously drunk and notoriously loud. Like he had this loud, abrasive voice you could hear for miles, and still does, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And Andy decided to do like a dramatic reading of various pornography around the fire. So he pulls out magazines, the Penthouse letters and stuff, and just starts reading the stuff out loud. And like a bigger and bigger crowd, like everyone's coming down to the fire to listen to Andy's dramatic reading, and it's beautiful. And he gets through a few stories, and we're all cracking up. And then one of the
all had
bikers,
our flashlights on him because you gave him more light, and he became bigger.
Yeah, he was amazing. And so one of the bikers comes out, and opens up his leather vest and reaches into his pocket and pulls out Andy this piece of paper. And Andy opens it up, and it's like arrest warrant. This document, blah 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 blah, the blah blah blah, the request to find and arrest. Max Middleton, and Max Middleton says it really loud, and everyone cracks up, and then he keeps reading it, and it's like blah blah blah, the accused Max Middleton, and he says every time he says it, everyone starts cheering Max Middleton,
absolutely,
and then everyone starts chanting Max Middleton,
Max
Middleton.
Yes.
And he gets through this whole thing. It's like this whole several paragraphs about what Max Middleton
is alleged to have done.
His alleged crimes and what state his address and where he's wanted and everything. And it just turned into like the entire campground. Every time would just be Max Middleton, Max Middleton, and then long after the story, all night, everyone would just occasionally someone would just yell Max Middleton.
And what we don't realize is that gentleman who what he had handed was like I think he had got caught up in the idea of the artistic reading,
right,
and then handed some document.
It would just be funny to read.
But unfortunately. It was his court sum.
No, that's not. No, the best part. The best part is that, like we said, Sunday was the poker run, and all these other bikers show up.
Yeah.
And the two guys that were sitting by the fire with us with the warrant come over the hill with this guy, and they get halfway down the hill.
That was it.
And they point at him and they go Max Middleton, and everyone in the campsite goes Max Middleton.
And this poor guy was like,
confused, right?
why do 85 people on mopeds know who I am and are chanting my name at full volume and also know about the crime I just committed?
Right, yeah.
Right, yeah. So that was...
Who knows if he was ever apprehended.
Yeah, it was fun. And then...
we didn't turn him in.
No, we didn't. Oh yeah, so I think we should cut to another story later about hot sauce or something else maybe. There's some other things that happened on that
Pinewood
one.
Derby.
But I think that's good. So on that, I think we're gonna let that one go. We have a little more for you. If you liked that, if you enjoy, Chicago shenanigans, I guess. Man, we've known each other a really, really long time, and we've shared some really amazing
we forgot about
events.
the drugs.
Oh, hold on. Yes, we should talk about the drugs. No, let's talk about the drugs in the next one. That story, Jesus. Because we have a conflicting opinion on that, and they might have a take. So, on that, remember, please ride fast and take chances. Bum, bum, ba-da, bum, ba-ba-da, bum, bum, ba-da-da. Press the red button. Get us out of here.